Take your trash and get out. This is my house now. Don't come back. My own daughter threw a garbage bag at my feet and slammed the door in my face. I stood there in the rain at 65 years old, thinking my life was over. But when I opened that bag, I found $700,000 in cash and a letter. The next morning, I drove to the address written inside. When I walked through that door, I was shocked by who was sitting there waiting for me. The person waiting for me in that Seattle apartment changed everything but before I reveal who it was. Tell me, have you ever had someone believe in you when everyone else gave up? Drop yes or no below, because you'll need that context for what's coming. My name is Bernard Brooks. I'm 65 years old, a widower. And until that October night, I thought I knew what family meant. I spent 40 years running Brooks Hardware on Southeast Division Street. When my wife Barbara got sick 10 years ago, I sold the store to pay for treatments that didn't work. With what was left, I built a modest house in Portland Heights. 3 years ago, my daughter Kimberly married Brett Caldwell, a real estate developer with a smile too white and a handshake too firm. They moved in temporarily. Temporary became permanent. I didn't mind Kimberly was my only child, and after losing Barbara, I was grateful for the company. But lately, Brett had been pushing hard. "Ahu, sign over the house," he'd say. "Estate planning." I'd reply, "I'm 65, not 95. The house was worth $2.5 million now, and Brett's eyes got brighter every time that number came up. That Tuesday evening in early October, everything came to a head. Brett slammed papers on the dining room table. "Sign these. Transfer of ownership to Kimberly." I shook my head. "I'm not signing anything." His jaw tightened. "You're being selfish. This house is worth $2.5 million. What happens if you have a heart attack? We need to protect it." I stood slowly. "Protect it or control it?" Brett's face flushed. "You stubborn old, you're living under our roof." "I built this roof, every beam, every wall, with my own hands." Kimberly sat across from us, pale and silent. That was odd. My daughter never stayed silent during arguments. She just stared at her hands, fingers twisting. "Kimberly, honey, talk to me." She didn't look up. Brett leaned in close. "Sign the papers, Bernard, or there will be consequences." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise." Outside rain began to patter against the windows. October in Portland, right on schedule. Kimberly still wouldn't meet my eyes. That should have been my first clue. Then she stood up. Her voice came out cold, but her hands shook. "Dad, I can't do this anymore." "Can't do what?" "Dad, you're the problem. You're a burden, an anchor dragging us down." The words hit like a physical blow. She grabbed a black garbage bag from the hall closet and hurled it at my feet. "Take your trash and get out. This is my house now. Don't come back." Brett crossed his arms, smirking. "Kimberly, please." She wouldn't look at me. Brett shoved me toward the door. "You heard her." The door slammed. I stood on the porch in the rain, clutching that garbage bag, my mind blank. I stumbled to a bus stop shelter a block away and collapsed onto the cold bench. The rain pounded the plastic roof. My heart was shattered, and that garbage bag sat beside me, the only thing I had left. I sat there for I don't know how long, water soaking through my jacket, my hands numb. The daughter I'd raised alone had just discarded me like trash. What was inside that bag, I had no idea. But I was about to find out. Inside that garbage bag, under the flickering streetlight, I found something I never expected. My hands were still numb from the cold, my jacket soaked through from the October rain, but I finally worked up the courage to open it. I thought I might find old clothes or junk Kimberly wanted gone. Instead, my fingers touched plastic-wrapped bundles. Cash. Stacks of $100 bills. I pulled out another, and another. My hands shook as I counted. $700,000 in cash. "What the hell is this?" I whispered. Where did this come from? Then I saw an envelope at the bottom, my name written in Kimberly's handwriting. My heart hammered as I tore it open. "Dad, if you're reading this, the plan worked? I'm sorry for what I said tonight. Every word was a lie. A month ago, late September, I woke at 2 a.m. Brett was in the office on the phone. I went for water and heard him through the door. He was talking to Willa Moore, his accountant, and his mistress, I realized that night. They were planning something terrible, planning to harm you, Dad. Brett's in serious trouble. Bad trouble. His latest development project failed. He gambled away over $3 million of investor money and forged documents to hide it. The house is his only way out. It's worth $2.5 million, but it's in your name. He planned to stage an accident, a fall downstairs, or a medical emergency in your sleep. Once you were gone, he'd forge your signature, transfer ownership, mortgage the house, and disappear with Willa. I tried to gather evidence, but I don't have enough. I overheard that call, but didn't record it. I saw suspicious texts and transactions, but Brett keeps everything locked down and watches me constantly. If he suspects, I know we're both in danger. That's why I had to get you out first. I had to make him believe I chose him over you. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. The $700,000 is mine, Dad. I earned it through my design work and equity in startups that were bought out. Brett thinks I make $30,000 a year. I actually make $120,000. I've hidden it for years, just in case. Go to Seattle. Apartment 304, Riverside Complex, 2150, Aurora Avenue North. The key is taped inside this envelope. I'm leaving tonight. I told Brett I have a client meeting tomorrow. He believes me. I'll be waiting. We'll figure this out together. I love you. Kimberly. I read the letter twice. The rain kept falling, but I didn't feel it. I felt rage at Brett, fierce pride in Kimberly, and cold determination. My daughter had risked everything to save my life. She heard terrible plans and acted, but she didn't have proof yet. She needed help. She needed me. I walked to my car and drove north on I-5. For a month, she'd lived with a man who meant me harm, playing her part while searching for evidence she couldn't reach. My little girl had become a warrior, and now it was my turn to lead. Brett Caldwell made one fatal mistake. He gave us time. 3 hours later, at 3 a.m., I pulled into the Riverside Complex parking lot in Seattle. Kimberly had arrived hours earlier. I found apartment 304 on the 3rd floor. My hands shook as I fit the key into the lock. Before I turned it, the door opened. Kimberly stood there, pale eyes, swollen from crying and exhaustion. She whispered, "Dad," and her voice broke. Everything changed in that moment with no return. I stepped inside, and Kimberly collapsed into my arms, sobbing. We stood there in that small Seattle apartment, holding each other. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. When she finally pulled back and looked at me, I saw something I'd never seen before. Not my little girl, but a woman who'd walked through fire to save her father. "I hated every second of it," she whispered, "having to say those things to you." "You saved my life," I said. "You have nothing to apologize for. When I had to look you in the eye and call you a burden," her voice cracked. "Dad, it almost broke me." "I know, I saw it. You were shaking. You couldn't look at me. I was terrified you wouldn't understand, that you'd think I really meant it." I gripped her hands. "Kimberly, listen to me. What you did took more courage than anything I've ever seen. You're not my little girl anymore. You're one of the bravest people I know." A brief moment of connection, then, "Now show me everything." Kimberly opened her laptop and played the recording. Brett's voice came through clear. "Willa, the old man won't budge. We've tried everything. He won't sign." Willa's voice. "So what do we do, Brett, eh? We do it the hard way. He's 65, living with us. An accident is easy. Fall down the stairs, head injury gone instantly. Police will think it was a stroke or heart attack." Willa. "What about Kimberly?" Brett laughed. "She trusts me completely. Once the old man's gone, I'll play the grieving husband. It's tragic, but we need to move forward. She'll sign anything I put in front of her. We transfer the house, mortgage it for $2 million, pay off the debts, and disappear to the Caymans." Willa. "And if she doesn't sign—" Brett paused. "Then we'll have another accident." The recording ended. My face went cold as stone. Kimberly showed me more bank statements revealing $3. $2 million missing from Brett's project accounts. Wire transfers to offshore accounts. Gambling losses at Las Vegas casinos. Forged investor documents. Photos of Brett and Willa together. Restaurants. Hotels. "He's been cheating for 2 years, Dad, using her accounting skills to hide his crimes. I've been gathering what I could this past month, everything you see here. But it's still not enough." I stared at the evidence. "You've got recordings, financial proof, photos. Why isn't this enough?" "I researched it," Kimberly said. "Just talking about harming someone isn't enough for charges. They'll call it venting or speculation. A good lawyer will get him off. We need him to actually commit a crime we can prove." "Like forgery," I said slowly. "Exactly. If you disappear, he'll think he's won. He'll get reckless. He'll forge your signature to transfer the house. That's fraud. That's provable. I'll need help. I can't do this alone." I thought of that. "Do you still have Sam Crawford's number?" I smiled slightly. My old military buddy, the private investigator. Yeah, I've got it. Call him in the morning, tell him everything. That morning, as dawn broke over Seattle, I made 2 calls. First was to Sam Crawford. He picked up on the second ring, despite the early hour. Bernard, that really you? 3 years since I heard from you. When I told him what I needed, there wasn't a moment's hesitation. I'm in. When do we start? The second call was to a forensic accountant Sam recommended. By noon, we'd assembled a team. By sunset, we'd mapped out a strategy. Brett Caldwell thought he was playing chess. He had no idea we'd just flipped the entire board. The next 8 weeks became the longest of my life. I became a ghost, no phone, no credit cards, no digital footprint. I lived in that Seattle apartment like a man who had stopped existing. 3 hours south in Portland, Brett Caldwell walked straight into every trap we set. Sam helped me disappear completely. We canceled my cards, bought a burner phone with cash, and rented the apartment under an alias. It's like dying without actually dying, I told Sam. Every morning I have to remember I'm not Bernard Brooks anymore. I'm nobody. Kimberly reported me missing to the neighbors. Dad was devastated after the argument. He just left. I don't know where she said. She played the worried daughter perfectly. Brett publicly comforted her. He'll come back when he cools off. Old folks can be stubborn. Watching through the hidden cameras Kimberly installed, I muttered, smug bastard. Sam created a false trail. Through his PI contacts, Bernard Brooks was spotted in Arizona. A credit card was used in Tucson. Sam made the purchase. Anyone checking would think I'd left Oregon entirely. Then Brett took the bait. Week 1, he hired a forger named Vince. Kimberly's camera caught it. I need signatures that'll pass inspection. That'll cost 10 grand. Deal. Week 2, forged signatures appeared on property transfer documents. Sam photographed Brett at the county clerk's office. Papers filed showed Bernard Brooks transferring ownership to Kimberly Brooks Caldwell. Week 3. Brett took Kimberly to the bank. Since your dad's gone, we should protect our assets. He mortgaged the house for $2 million. Kimberly asked, confused, is this legal with Dad not here? Brett smiled. He signed before leaving. Trust me. She was wearing a wire. Sam recorded everything. Week 4. Brett paid his gambling debts. $800,000 to a Las Vegas casino. $400,000 to private creditors. Sam traced every transaction. Week 5. Brett planned his big ceremony, a new development funded by stolen money. He invited investors, press, and city officials. This is my comeback, my coronation. Weeks 6 and 7, Brett became increasingly affectionate with Kimberly. He bought expensive gifts. She faked gratitude. I watched, thinking every smile cost her, but she never slipped. Week 8, Willa moved into the guest room. To help plan the project Brett claimed, they barely hid the affair anymore. Kimberly pretended not to notice. From Seattle, I watched everything. Every lie, every forged signature, every dollar from that illegal mortgage. We were building an ironclad case, and Brett walked into it willingly. Then came the darker discovery. Late in week 7, Kimberly sent me a new recording. I listened through headphones, and my blood went cold. Kimberly's been acting strange, Brett said, asking about the paperwork. You think she knows, Willa asked. I don't know. Maybe. She's smarter than I thought. If she actually knows, then she becomes a problem. The old man was easy expendable. But Kimberly, if she divorces me, she takes half of everything. Can't let that happen. My hands shook. This wasn't just about me anymore. My daughter was in danger. I sat alone in that dark apartment, listening to Brett discuss hurting my child like it was a business decision. For 8 weeks, I'd been patient, strategic, playing the long game. That recording changed everything. This was no longer about justice, my house, or my name. It was about survival. I had 2 weeks before Brett's moment of triumph, when he'd stand on stage like a king. 2 weeks to turn it into his reckoning. Suddenly, 2 weeks felt like both an eternity and nowhere near enough time. December 1st. Brett's big event was scheduled for December 15th, exactly 2 weeks away. Sam Crawford sat across from me in the Seattle apartment, evidence files spread between us like battle plans. You ready? He asked. I met his eyes. Brett is planning to harm my daughter. I've never been more ready. The apartment walls were covered with proof, a whiteboard timeline, photos of forged documents, money flow charts tracing stolen cash, and transcripts of recorded conversations. Sam had brought in a critical contact FBI agent, Karen Wallace. She'd been investigating Brett's company for investor fraud for months. We've had eyes on Caldwell development for a long time, she said, but we couldn't get inside. Your evidence fills every gap. Agent Wallace reviewed the files carefully. This is solid. Forgery, fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy to harm. He's facing 15 to 20 years minimum. Then she added, but we need to catch him cleanly. Public setting. Witnesses. No room for lawyers to twist it. That's why we use his groundbreaking ceremony, I said. 200 guests. Press. City officials, including Mayor Richardson. He'll be on stage, convinced he's won. They finalized the plan. FBI agents would attend as anonymous investors. When the video played, they'd move in. A simultaneous warrant would be executed for Willem Moore. Everything timed to the second. Agent Wallace hesitated. Mr. Brooks' public arrests like this are unusual? I leaned forward. He planned to hurt me and my daughter. He stole from dozens of people. He needs to fall as publicly as he rose, or men like him think they're untouchable. Wallace studied me, then nodded. All right, let's end him. Sam and I spent days assembling the video expose. It opened with my reported disappearance. Then came the recordings. Audio synced with subtitles. Forged signatures appeared beside real ones. Financial documents exposed the embezzlement. A clear timeline of crimes followed. Photos of Brett and Willa's affair flashed on screen. The final reveal showed the truth I was still alive. Sam remotely installed the AV override system at the Portland Convention Center. It would cut Brett's presentation at a precise timestamp. Once triggered, it couldn't be stopped. A backup USB was prepared in case anything failed. I recorded the voiceover in sections steady and controlled. Sam edited everything together. We rehearsed repeatedly. This has to be flawless, Sam said. We only get one shot. The finished video ran 12 minutes. Every second mattered. I checked in with Kimberly daily on a secure line. She was exhausted. I don't know how much longer I can do this, she admitted. Just a few more days, I told her. You're almost free. Brett grew suspicious. You seem distant, he said. Kimberly played it perfectly. I'm just stressed about your big moment. I want it perfect. 2 days before the ceremony, Brett rehearsed his speech. Kimberly watched him confidently pace the room. She texted me later, he has no idea what's coming. The night before the event, she couldn't sleep. At 2 a.m, her message came through. Dad, I'm scared. What if something goes wrong? I replied immediately. Nothing will. Tomorrow we take our lives back. December 15th, 6 p.m. I stood backstage at the Portland Convention Center, wearing the suit I'd worn to Kimberly's college graduation. Through a gap in the curtain, I watched 200 people take their seats. Investors, reporters, city officials. Mayor Richardson sat front row. Agent Wallace and her team blended in effortlessly. Kimberly sat in the third row, hands folded, face calm. Only I noticed her fingers trembling. Then Brett Caldwell walked onto the stage in his designer suit, smiling, waving like a king. He had no idea that in exactly 12 minutes, everything he'd built would be reduced to ashes. The lights dimmed, and the crowd settled into their seats. Brett Caldwell stepped to the microphone, and from the shadows backstage, I watched him. My heart pounded. This was it. There was no turning back. The stage was perfect. A massive screen behind him, a podium stamped with the Caldwell Development logo spotlights gleaming. Brett smiled and began with practiced ease. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Richardson, distinguished guests, thank you for being here tonight. His voice was smooth, confident. This evening marks more than a groundbreaking. It marks a vision realized, a promise fulfilled. Slides appeared behind him, sleek architectural renderings, glossy statements about growth and community impact. This project will bring 500 jobs to Portland. We're not just building structures. We're building community, building trust, building legacy. From backstage, my jaw clenched. The hypocrisy was sickening. Brett gestured toward the third row. None of this would be possible without my incredible wife, Kimberly. Your support means everything to me. Kimberly smiled faintly and nodded. Polite applause followed. Brett grew more animated. This project represents everything I stand for. Integrity, partnership, vision. He raised the clicker. Now let me show you the future of... The screen went black. Brett's smile flickered. Slight technical issue. Just a moment. He clicked again. Nothing. The speakers squealed with feedback. He turned sharply toward the wings. What's going on, Fix-It? Then the speakers roared to life. Hello, Brett. Surprised to hear from me. My voice echoed through the hall. Brett froze. The color drained from his face. Confused murmurs rippled through the audience as the screen lit up again, this time with my face. "My name is Bernard Brooks," the video said. "3 months ago, the man standing before you planned to harm me. Let me show you exactly how." Brett lunged for his microphone. This is a joke, but it was dead. Sam had killed the audio. Brett waved frantically toward the tech booth, but no one was watching him anymore. Every eye was on the screen. A title card appeared. Part 1, Conspiracy to Harm. Audio played, subtitles flashing beneath it. Brett's voice filled the room. "We do it the hard way. He's 65. An accident is easy. Fall down the stairs. Head injury. Police will think stroke or heart attack." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Willem Moore's voice followed. "What about Kimberly?" Brett replied calmly. "She trusts me. Once the old man's gone, she'll sign anything. We transfer the house, mortgage it for $2 million, pay the debts, and disappear." I watched the audience react in waves and hands over mouths, faces pale. Mayor Richardson stared in horror. Investors whispered angrily to one another. Kimberly sat motionless, tears streaming freely now, no longer acting. Relief, safety. It was ending. My narration continued. That conversation was recorded 2 months ago. Brett Caldwell didn't know his wife had discovered his plan. He didn't know she was protecting me. The screen changed again. Part 2, Fraud. The display split in half. On the left, my real signature from old documents. On the right, forged signatures from property transfers. Red arrows highlighted differences, the slant, the pressure, the rounded letters. On October 3rd, my voice said Brett Caldwell hired a forger. He filed fraudulent documents and stole my house. County stamps appeared. Dates, case numbers. Then mortgage papers filled the screen. $2 million. My forged signature below. On October 15th, he mortgaged a house he did not own. That is fraud. That is theft. The video paused. Silence pressed down on the room. Brett stood rigid on stage, sweat soaking his expensive suit. He tried to speak, but no one cared. The image froze on the forged signature for 3 long seconds. Then my face appeared again. "But ladies and gentlemen," I said, "Brett Caldwell's crimes go far beyond forgery or conspiracy to harm. He didn't just steal from me. He stole from every single person in this room." The video continued. The screen filled with numbers, bank accounts, wire transfers, amounts that made investors lean forward with sudden, sharp focus. Brett Caldwell was not only a fraud with dangerous intentions, he was a thief, and I was about to prove it to everyone in that room. A new title card appeared. Part 3. Embezzlement. Bank statements scrolled across the screen as my recorded voice narrated calmly. Caldwell Development managed investments from 47 individuals. Total $8.5 million. A chart broke everything down. Money in $8.5 million from investors. Legitimate expenses $2.1 million. Consulting fees routed offshore $3.2 million. Personal spending on Vegas and luxury goods $1.8 million. Payments to Willem Moore $900,000. Remaining $500,000. Receipts followed. Casino statements showed $847,000 charged to Brett's player account. Wire transfers flowed to a Cayman Islands account, naming Willem Moore as beneficiary. Luxury car purchases totaled $180,000. Jewelry receipts showed $95,000, purchased for someone identified only as WM. Account names flashed. Joint account Brett Caldwell and Willa Moore. The camera panned to Willa in the audience. She stood trying to slip quietly toward an exit. FBI agents blocked every door. She froze, then slowly sat back down. The room erupted. "That's my money," someone shouted. "He said that paid for permits," another yelled. Anger spread like fire. A new title appeared. Part 4, Theft. Property records filled the screen. My Portland Heights address. Assessed value $2.5 million. Legal owner Bernard Brooks since 2014. Then the mortgage application appeared. Filed October 15th. Amount $2 million. Signed by Bernard Brooks, forged. My voice continued evenly. "I never signed these documents. I never authorized this mortgage. Brett Caldwell stole my home and used it as collateral." The money trail followed. $2 million deposited into Brett's account. $800,000 to Vegas casinos. $400,000 to private creditors. $600,000 to the Cayman account. $200,000 labeled operating expenses, every dollar traced, every crime visible. Then came the darkest revelation. A title card read, Part 5, Conspiracy continues. A recording played from late November. Brett's voice. Kimberly's been acting strange, asking questions. Willa replied, "You think she knows." Brett paused, then said coldly, "If she knows, she's a problem. If she divorces me, she takes half." Willa asked quietly, "What are you saying?" Brett answered, "If she becomes an obstacle, we handle it. Same way we planned with the old man." The audience gasped. Someone whispered, "Oh my God!" Kimberly stood, tears streaming freely. My narration followed. He wasn't finished. He was willing to harm my daughter. On stage, Brett shook his head, mouthing denials. His microphone remained dead. The video ended with my face filling the screen. Brett Caldwell believed I was old, invisible, disposable. But here's what he didn't know. The lights cut out. A single spotlight illuminated the back of the auditorium. I stepped into it alive and began walking down the center aisle. The crowd exploded. Gasps. Applause. Shouts of disbelief. Cameras flashed. I walked steadily forward, eyes locked ahead. Brett stood frozen on stage, face-white suit, soaked with sweat. "You were supposed to be," he stammered. "Gone," I said as I reached the stage. "Sorry to disappoint." Agent Karen Wallace and her FBI team moved in. "Brett Caldwell, you are under arrest for fraud, forgery, embezzlement, and conspiracy to harm." Handcuffs snapped shut. Brett struggled. "This is a setup," Wallace replied calmly. "We can prove every word." At the same moment, agents arrested Willa at her seat. I faced the audience. "I'm Bernard Brooks. I'm 65 years old. 3 months ago, this man tried to erase me." I paused. He failed. Kimberly ran onto the stage and faced Brett. "I'm filing for divorce," she said firmly. "You'll never touch my money." Then she turned to me and hugged me tightly. "We did it, Dad." "You saved us," I replied. As Brett was led away in handcuffs past cameras and witnesses, I stood on that stage holding my daughter's hand. Flashbulbs popped. Voices shouted. Somewhere behind it all, I felt something simple and powerful. I felt free. The TV vans were still parked outside Portland Convention Center when Kimberly and I walked out together. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras tracked our every step. But for the first time in 3 months, I wasn't hiding. I wasn't pretending to be someone else. I was just Bernard Brooks. And it felt like waking up from a very long nightmare. Justice isn't always fast, but it was thorough. Brett Caldwell pleaded guilty. The video evidence was too overwhelming to fight. He was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for fraud, forgery, conspiracy to harm, embezzlement, and wire fraud. Willa Moore took a plea deal and got 7 years for accessory to fraud, criminal, conspiracy, and embezzlement. The house ownership was returned to me. The illegal $2 million mortgage was voided. Brett's assets were seized and distributed to the investors he'd defrauded. They got some of their money back, not all, but some. Kimberly's divorce was finalized by March. She kept her entire $700,000 separate property she'd earned before marriage. No alimony, a clean break. By spring, every legal tangle was cleared. Brett Caldwell would spend the next decade and a half in federal prison, and Kimberly was finally truly free. In April, we stood together in the empty house. The furniture was sold. Our footsteps echoed through bare rooms. We walked through them one last time. In the kitchen, I said, "Your mom taught you to bake cookies right here, remember?" In the living room, "You took your first steps on this carpet." But we both felt the darkness, too. "This is where Brett plotted," Kimberly said quietly. "Where Willa came to plan their crimes." I looked around at the walls I'd built with my own hands. "What do you want to do with it, Dad?" Kimberly asked. I took a long breath. "I built this house to create a home. But home isn't walls and wood. It's people. It's love. And there's too much darkness in these walls now. So we sell it. We sell it, and we build something new. Something better." The house sold for $2.6 million. We split it 50-50. Kimberly tried to object. "Dad, I don't need." "You saved my life, Kimberly. You deserve this. Besides, I've got plans for my half." Kimberly used her share, $1.3 million, plus her $700,000 in savings to found Brooks Design Co., an architecture and design firm specializing in affordable housing. Her mission statement read, "Good design shouldn't be just for the wealthy." Her first project was a community center in East Portland, serving low-income families, with after-school programs, job training, and senior services. 6 months in her business was thriving. 4 employees hired, 3 major projects underway. Portland Business Journal featured her Young Designer Pioneers Affordable Housing. In the interview, she said, "For years, I hid who I was, hid what I earned, hid my capabilities. Never again. Now I'm building on my own terms, and it feels incredible. I used my share to start Second Chance Builders, a nonprofit teaching trades to people over 50. Carpentry, basic home repair, plumbing, electrical work, plus financial literacy workshops focused on preventing elder financial abuse. So what happened to me? I told the first class, never happens to anyone else. I hired Sam Crawford as executive director. Our classes were held at the community center Kimberly designed. Our first class had 15 students, ages 52 to 71, a retired teacher learning carpentry, a widow learning to fix her own plumbing, a former accountant laid off at 58 learning home repair to start a handyman business. I spent 40 years building things, I told them. Now I'm teaching others to build, not just skills, but confidence. Knowledge that you're never too old to learn something new, never too old to start over. Kimberly and I had Sunday dinners together every week, never missed. We collaborated on projects, her designs, my construction expertise. We'd walked through hell together, but we'd come out stronger, not just as father and daughter, but as partners, as equals, as survivors who refused to stay victims. 6 months after that night at the convention center, Kimberly and I stood together at the ribbon cutting for our community center, her design, my teaching space, our shared vision of giving people second chances. Mayor Richardson was there, yes, the same Mayor Richardson who'd witnessed Brett Caldwell's fall. Local news cameras were rolling, but this time they were recording something good, something worth celebrating. Kimberly handed me the scissors. "Do you want to do the honors, Dad?" she asked. I looked at the building, solid, purposeful, built to serve and endure, like us. I smiled and took her hand. "Let's do it together, sweetheart." People often ask me now at workshops, at speaking events, even in the grocery store when someone recognizes me from the news, "Bernard, how did you do it? How did you come back?" I always give the same answer, the truth. I'm teaching carpentry in my Second Chance Builders class for people over 50 when George 68 asks that question. I put down my tools and say, "You want an honest answer, I didn't come back." I move forward. There's a difference. Coming back means trying to return to who you were. But the man who trusted too easily, who believed keeping peace meant accepting disrespect, is gone. Good riddance. Moving forward means becoming someone new, someone who knows his worth. Age doesn't make you weak. It makes you wiser, more experienced, more strategic. That garbage bag my daughter threw at me? People hear these grandpa stories and think it was trash. It wasn't. It was a gift. Kimberly's way of saying, "Dad, I trust you. Fight back," and I did. God gave me the clarity to see that. The hardest battles aren't won with strength. They're won with patient strategy and knowing when to wait and when to act, building a case like building a house one board at a time. I'm not just talking to George. I'm talking to everyone listening to these grandpa stories. Brett Caldwell made one fatal mistake. He confused age with weakness. He thought 65 meant invisible, finished. But age is wisdom earned over decades. It's knowing how to plan and protect the future. Brett was 38, impulsive, greedy, arrogant. Those were his weaknesses. I was 65, patient, strategic, experienced, and I had something he never did, people who loved me. My daughter risked everything to save me, not because she had to, but because she chose to, because we built trust over 35 years. Every bedtime story, every school play, every moment she needed me. God gave me that foundation, and it saved us. This true story isn't about revenge, it's about love. Brett had accomplices. I had family. That's the difference. Real relationships fight for you. Transactional ones leave when you're no longer useful. So if you feel invisible, discarded like trash, listen carefully. You are not your age. You are not your circumstances. You are your choices. Every day you choose give up or stand up, accept defeat, or fight, live someone else's story, or write your own. I chose to fight. I'm 66 now. I teach 3 days a week. I have Sunday lunch with my daughter. I sleep peacefully knowing I stood up for myself. I've never been happier. That garbage bag changed my life. This true story proves it's never too late. These grandpa stories exist to remind you of that. Thank you for listening to my true story.